Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews. Coach guys, for my review for the first 2 episodes of Justified City Primeval. Alright, so it is finally here, Justified City Primeval, the continuation of the Elmore Leonard world and of course the original series of Justified that finished airing 8 years ago now in 2015. Crazy to think about, right? So we are back. Raylan Givens is back in this kind of continuation mini-series here. Only be 8 episodes, so kind of a short kind of stint to kind of bring back the character of Raylan Givens, and like I said, this world of Elmore Leonard. So this is probably my most anticipated show of the year. Huge fan of course, the original series, one of my favorite shows of all time, and just recently went back and took a look at the pilot for the original series as part of my throwback pilot reviews series. So if you are interested in that, go ahead and check that one out as well. But it was really cool to kind of get back in the spirit of things, to check that pilot out, kind of where it all began. So that was a really cool experience, and I was really looking forward, of course, to the premiere here for the first 2 episodes that FX kind of gave us here at once. So love to hear your guys' thoughts, of course, on these first 2 episodes. Of course, if you're a fan of the original series of Justified, which obviously I'd assume you would be, what are your thoughts on that? Anything you want to share about Justified and these new episodes, part of the miniseries here? Love to hear any and all your thoughts for sure on that. And if you enjoyed the review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. So for this one, there'll just be kind of mild spoilers, I would say. I have a few notes here of what I want to talk about for the first couple episodes. Then I'll give a rating for them, talk about my favorite characters, and then just kind of some light predictions. I do, next week, or I guess in a few days now for the next episode, I do want to get into a bit of a different format where I'll actually go into more of the events of each episode, kind of talk about the predictions more and, what I see happening in the story and all that stuff. This one's going to be kind of a little bit more surface level. So I will, as I cover more of the episodes here in the miniseries, it will be a little bit different. But yeah, so just mild spoilers, of course, for these first 2 episodes as I kind of go through some of my thoughts here. So overall, I will say, though, I want to begin, I think we're off to a great start with these first 2 episodes here. I'm not blown away, I'm not really just in shock and awe of just how amazing it is, but I'm not disappointed either. And I will say the first, few minutes of the premiere, or maybe the first 10-15 minutes of it, I don't know, I think it starts maybe just a little too slow. It just has a little bit of time to find its footing. But I will say, I think it was a great call to release both episodes, because the rest of that premiere, and I think episode 2, to most of it, right, to the majority of episode 2, really sold me on this, and really kind of left me thinking, okay, this was a great start, right, in these first 2 episodes. So yeah, I think I may have felt a little different if they had just aired the premiere here, because like I said, I think it starts a little slow and has a kind of a few missteps there, trying to find the tone and trying to kind of bring us back here. And I think the beginning is just very kind of quick. I would have liked to maybe see, now I just said it was a little bit slow, but I just mean in the way that I'm more talking about kind of the pacing of the events that happen, with the, Raylan having to go to the courtroom and, being punished by the judge and all that stuff. So it was kind of a great introduction back into where Raylan is now. But just, him getting to Detroit, I just felt like was maybe just a little quick. And then once he got there, it was kind of slow until we finally kind of got into things. With that episode. Now, I will say the sequence to end the episode in the premiere, when Mansell goes on his kind of rampage, right? At the end, well, not really rampage, right? He only kills 2. He kills the judge and his assistant, who ends up being a CI for them, so that's a big deal. And Keith David, man, does he do an amazing job as the judge. here in this first episode. Just amazing. But anyways, just a really excellent sequence. When Menzel goes off and kills them both, and kind of like tracks down the assistant, runs her down in the park, and it's just such a great way. Like, it's just so, classic Justified, because he's really trying to, chase down Sandy, who's with the Mark then, and it just so happens that the judge is just there and blocks him, and then they get into this fight that was never planned, right, going into it, and Menzel is just kind of impulsive, and so he just carries this out, and that's just so Justified. It's just kind of this like comedic, a little bit of like, these weird kind of circumstances, like something like, even like the first thing that popped to mind was like in season 5 with the crows, when one of the crows goes, it's like kind of this, I guess, this running thing between Raylan and one of the crows, and he just ends up falling in a hole and dying, and it's just like such a funny kind of anticlimactic end to that kind of sequence. And that's what I felt here. It's just, again, that same classic feel of Justified, and obviously it's all the same writers. Of course, Dave Andron, who wrote this episode, obviously a big writer in the original series, and Michael Dinner directing, who directed a lot of the best episodes of the series. So, yeah, no wonder, right? So, yeah, the directing, the writing, acting, all top-notch in that sequence to end off the premiere. I thought some of the shots where they were showing kind of the passenger side mirror when he was getting out of the car, just some really unique shots that you don't see in a lot of TV shows these days that Michael Dinner gets here. And again, reminiscent of that original series with Justified, when they did that all the time. So can't say enough about the ending, and just so exhilarating, right? Kind of getting into that moment and kind of witnessing this crime happening. Obviously, horrifying too, the way he, runs down the assistant. But that's kind of, that is Justified. We're kind of used to seeing, stuff like that and these types of crimes for these, Elmore Leonard style villains. But in this case, it literally is an Elmore Leonard villain, because of course it's based off, his novel for this one, City Primeval. So, yeah, really captured that classic Justified feel. And then the second episode, I feel like I'm saying this a lot, but I thought it was actually a pretty slow-moving episode, right? It's the stakeout episode, basically, right, where they're staking out Sandy. And I thought it was great, though. The chemistry between Raylan and the detective, his new partner, was already really great. And just that kind of back and forth dialogue, again, just really reminiscent of the original series. With Raylan and and all of his kind of partners and all the people he worked with throughout the series. So yeah, I thought that was really great as well. And I think just the tone was just a little bit better in that episode, because it just, again, seemed like an original series. There was a lot of those kind of slower moving episodes, but, of them staking out somebody, or, Raylan going on, kind of a different case, right, for that episode. And so it's a bit more slow moving. And so it just seemed, again, kind of reminiscent of that feel of Justified, whereas the premiere felt a little different to me in that way. This really did feel like could have been just another episode of the original series in that way, with a kind of just case of the week kind of thing of them staking out Sandy here. So obviously Menzel's stunt there with Raylan's daughter at the end of episode 2, or kind of towards the end, was also great. Obviously, again, really kind of capturing that Justified tone that is just such a typical, villain in the show to do, always trying to kind of take advantage of Raylan, and obviously kind of hit below the belt, right? And we saw that with a lot of villains in the original series. And so Menzel, already love Menzel, obviously, and so that whole move there was just like so sick and twisted, but just so, you were just like so tense, kind of waiting for Raylan to, come back to the hotel and find out what was happening. And then, of course, kind of the showdown, if you will. Not really, right? Because Mansell doesn't fight back, but they kind of fight between the two where Raylan really just punches him in the face a bunch of times. Was really great. So yeah, loved the way that the both episodes ended. Of course, Raylan's daughter, I think, has to be said. I think she was a weak point of that second episode and did kind of bring it down. Some of those sequences where she's just kind of walking around the city, I'm not sure what the point of those were. It just is not really developing her as a character. To me, they were just kind of throwaway scenes in there, and that was a little bit disappointing in terms of that second episode for me. But anyways, so in terms of the kind of acting, I guess, or some of these characters now that have been introduced, because Raylan is really the only one. I mean, technically Willa is in, I believe that, flash forward at the end of Justified, the original series, but of course it's a different version of her. She's much older. But outside of those two, Raylan and his daughter, I think everybody else is new here, and they're all really great, but Boyd Holbrook, man, I gotta really call him out. I think he was born to play a character in the Elmore Leonard world of Justified. I mean, couldn't you just, especially now seeing him in this miniseries, couldn't you have just seen him as a really great villain in one of the seasons of the original series? It is just so cool to see this guy, portraying a villain in this world. To me, just such a perfect casting. When I heard that he was, the villain in this, he's playing the Oklahoma wild man, he's just absolutely nailing it so far. So he's honestly even exceeded my expectations. I was so excited going in to hear him, playing the villain, and he's just doing a fantastic job. And if this series just existed to see Boyd Holbrook play this villain-type character, I may just be satisfied because, yeah, I just can't say enough. I think he's just nailing the role. Really love Boyd Holbrook as an actor as well, so that obviously helps. But, yeah, just so great. And I do really like the character, the way it's written so far, too. I really do like it. And some of the scenes are just crazy, right? Like him, the one scene where he's butt naked, just staring out the window of his apartment there, and talking about ruling the world and that. It's just that kind of classic, kind of psychopathic, kind of unhinged villain character here that we saw. I guess not really in the original series, but we kind of saw hints of that with some of those, characters in there. So I guess you could even maybe say Quarles, now that I think about it. Quarles would maybe be the best kind of comparison in that way from season 3, right? Okay, so Timothy Olyphant, obviously slipping right back into Raylan. I think he's doing a great job so far. The character does feel a little different to me, besides just kind of obviously the physical appearance of Timothy Olyphant looking, quite a bit older than he did in the original series. But the character to me also feels a little different, and I wonder if we're going to, get a little more backstory. Not that we necessarily need it, but I'm just wondering if that's maybe where they'll take it here, and we'll learn a little bit more of, maybe Willa and his relationship, what's happened in these years that have passed. But I would also be okay if we didn't. That's just something I wonder if they're going to bring up, because I do feel like he's a little different. And of course, that probably is also because he has a daughter, right? And so that changes a lot. And so I'm sure that's probably, obviously we even see in especially episode 2, but that kind of parental, feeling in him, which was just not there. Obviously, it was when Willa was pregnant, right? And that whole kind of storyline in the original series, and he was very protective. But now, he actually has, his daughter there. And so it's, obviously it's a little different. He has that kind of parental sensibility now. So yeah, I really think he's doing a great job, though, kind of slipping back into Raylan Givens here. Just amazing. Really does obviously nail the comedic stuff. He always was so great at that in the original series too. And when I look back at the pilot, I can't believe his facial expressions, his timing. It's just so perfect. So yeah. So one thing that kind of stood out to me though is I'm not a huge fan of this story taking place in current times. With, in basically 2023, I believe at least that's when this is taking place. we get kind of modern references and technology. All the cars even, look very modern, very new. And this is kind of the thought I had after watching the first two episodes. And then I thought to myself, well, the original series was also based in the current times when it aired. I believe that was based in 2010. I believe even in the pilot episode, we get a year on there that says 2010. So, it actually is the same thing, right? Like, both series did take place at the current time, when they aired. And so, to me, like, it's just something I more noticed. Obviously, I didn't watch the show in 2010 when it aired. And so that's, to me, something I just noticed with this one. It's like, oh, like, it feels like a little too modern to me. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, the original series probably felt that too. Now, the one thing, though, that I did think about is, maybe it's not even just the modern setting or, kind of the current time stuff with the references. It's more just the city setting of Detroit, which is kind of this marked departure from rural Kentucky that we had in the original series. And so I think it's less about the timing of the series and more so about the setting. And so I think both kind of the timing and the setting combined is kind of throwing me for a loop here. And it really does feel like a different style of the show when it's not based in rural Kentucky and a lot of those southern kind of settings and the themes that kind of play off of that. And the types of characters that we see too, right, in the villains. So, although I will say, of course, Oklahoma Wild Man, he is a bit of that kind of southern, right, type of villain as well that we saw in the original series. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, the setting of the city is definitely different. It's a different vibe. I'm not saying it's necessarily worse, but it is definitely a different vibe. And so I think that's something I definitely recognized, coming out of this. And I think for, some people, it's going to feel different, and I'm not sure that it's going to be necessarily a positive for some, and I'm not sure where I stand on that. I'll have to see kind of as we go here. But yeah, it's kind of a different feel for sure to this world of Justified and Elmore Leonard for sure. But anyways, I just want to end off kind of my thoughts here. I am definitely looking forward to the next few episodes with different writers from the original series. So Dave Andron wrote, I guess, along with Michael Dinner, even though he's directing the episodes, but he wrote both these episodes. So I am kind of looking forward to having kind of maybe different voices in terms of the writing in these next episodes. Names like Chris Provenzano, Taylor Elmore, VJ Boyd, who wrote some of the best episodes of the series, the original series, especially Taylor Elmore. I thought he did like some of like my favorite episodes. So it'd be really cool to see him write, and just like if there will be a discernible difference between his episodes and Dave Andron's episodes, because I just remember a lot of the dialogue, I think maybe feels different between episodes. Maybe I'm just making shit up. Maybe if I didn't know the writers, I wouldn't say that, but to me it just did seem like they did some really great work in the original series. So looking forward to kind of seeing what their episodes have in store in the next few weeks here for the series. But yeah, I'm just overall glad that a lot of these writers are back, right? I think it's like Fred Golan, who, and Graham Yost actually is not writing any episodes, but he's a producer here. But I think those are really just the two guys who are missing really from this kind of original nucleus of all the writers. And how great is that, right? Really awesome stuff. So yeah, those are just about all my thoughts then on the first couple episodes. So in terms of a rating for both of these episodes, I'm going to give them a 4 out of 5. Same rating for both for the reasons I stated above. I think there's a great sequence at the end of the premiere to make up for a bit of a slower start, and then the second episode just felt like that kind of classic Justified episode with the stakeout happening, Raylan and the detective kind of tracking down leads, that kind of thing. Even though it was a bit of a slower, paced episode, I guess, slow moving, just in the way of that kind of stakeout happening. And then, of course, a great ending, to that second episode as well, with that kind of first confrontation between Mansell and Raylan, which was freaking awesome, right? The kind of showdown, if you will. But like I said, it's not really a showdown because Mansell doesn't even fight back. So, so for different reasons, 4 out of 5 for both episodes so far. And like I said, off to a great start, but nothing that really blew me away, that was kind of insane, I couldn't believe. Nothing like that, but not disappointing either. But, great, pretty good, right? So I think a 4 out of 5 is justified, I guess, for those first 2 episodes. So in terms of my favorite characters, I'm just going to go with Raylan and Mansell for each episode respectively. And as the episodes go on, I'll try to center on some more other characters as well. But yeah, obviously great stuff from, Timothy Olyphant coming back as Raylan. Like I said, feels a little different than the original series Raylan, and I like that quite a bit. It just makes sense all these years later, and in a different, setting too with the city. And I think Clement Mansell is such a great villain so far. Of course, we'll have to see how it plays out, but loved him in the first couple episodes, and his move, trying to get close to Raylan's daughter and gonna use that against him. It's just like, again, really kind of sick and twisted, and it's just something that it's just so fascinating to watch that character. And like I said, it's just this tension waiting to see what Raylan's reaction is going to be to this, even though, as a viewer, we know what's happening and Raylan doesn't. And so, we're just kind of waiting for Raylan to find out what we know and kind of face Mansell that's hanging out with his daughter. So, really crazy stuff there. And so I think a great start for the villain of this series, or this story, right, for City Primeval. So in terms of kind of some light predictions here, going off just the first couple episodes, obviously Sandy is going to be the focus then, and I think will probably be Mansell's downfall. Obviously, she, we even see in the second episode with them staking her out and talking to her, she does seem kind of like the weak link here, obviously, in the partnership. And so I think she's, obviously going to be, part of Mansell's downfall in the end. And obviously she's going to be, the way that Raylan and the detectives kind of try to get at him for sure. That's kind of an obvious one that they've kind of set up already. And Willa's got to leave town. I think, Raylan will probably try to get her out of harm's way here in this next episode. I am sensing a bit of kind of what they're going to play out here. I think, she's kind of this angsty, teen, and this kind of relationship is going to fray a little bit, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think that is a pretty big cliche, and I don't know, we'll have to see how it plays out, but I do think that's kind of maybe where we're going there. Maybe she doesn't want to leave town, doesn't want to go without him, that kind of thing. So we'll have to see what happens with that. I wouldn't be a huge fan of that, but it is what it is. But yeah, I think obviously Raylan's going to try to get her the hell out of the city, and out of Mansell's reach, pretty much, while he deals with him, right, and probably won't stop until he gets him, and then at that point Willa can kind of come back, or they can be together again. But until then, she's in danger now. That's just kind of what it is. And of course, her decisions as well kind of played into that in the second episode too, and being kind of lured down by Mansell. But I will say, in her defense, like, it actually did seem like it was a really kind of twisted thing that he did, because from her perspective, like, it's not that crazy of a thing to have this guy call and say, oh, your dad's, running late, I'll be, spending time with you or whatever, or, you have to, I have to watch you or whatever, right? And so I don't blame her. Like, I think that actually makes sense. I don't think that was kind of a too much of an overstretch in terms of the writing there. I think that made a lot of sense, and it's just kind of how it went. I think Mansell just kind of outsmarted Raylan here at this point. So yeah, I'm sure that kind of relationship, that dynamic, is going to come to a head in this next episode. And obviously, I think the gun at Sweetie's is going to be a big one, because that obviously can kind of, connect Mansell to the murder of the judge and his assistant there. So I'm just wondering if Sweetie or Raylan is going to find the gun first, and I feel like it might be Sweetie, and he might be able to kind of use that against Mansell, because we do see that he's kind of already curious, Sandy came in the bar and left. He came in the bar and left. Came into the bar, got the gun the first time, right? And then she came back and then just left. And so I think he's going to pick up on something and find that gun. But anyways, those are just about all kind of my predictions. Just light, stuff that I'm kind of seeing going forward. But like I said, in future episodes, we'll kind of dive into that more and talk about some more events and what I see coming up in the future. So anyways, I'll just about do it then for my review for these first couple episodes. Off to a great start, like I said, and really looking forward to the rest of this mini-series and definitely next episode for sure. So thank you guys so much for watching this one, and definitely stay tuned for the future reviews for City Primeval mini-series here. So anyways, again, thank you guys so much for watching this one, and we'll see you then in my next review.
On this lonely road, trying to make it home, doing it by my lonesome, pissed off, who wants some? I'm fighting for my soul, God, get at you, boy. You try to go, God, fall back, I go hard. On this lonely road.